Hey guys, my name is Brandon with Timbren. Today we're here in Bozeman, Montana, and we're super excited to be with Phoenix from Arcworks to install an axleless suspension on an off-road trailer that he's building. Let's get started. Let's take a look at some of the tools Phoenix will be using in the Arcworks trailer build. He's going to be using a drill, torque wrench, various drill bits, and wrenches. Now before we get started, there are several part numbers and capacities to choose from. Here's how Phoenix narrowed it down. The HD setup was chosen because this trailer has the intentions of being utilized off-road. Longer spindles are also being used to accommodate larger wheels and tires. When building the trailer, it's important to make sure that the frame is perfectly square. If the frame isn't completely square, potential failures could include alignment issues, tracking of the trailer, uneven tire wear, or bearing failure. Before installing the suspension to the frame, you'll need to bolt the outboard arm to the control arm. The axleless assembly includes fasteners for this purpose. Now that the outboard arm is fastened to the control arm with the proper torque, you can install the entire assembly to the frame. Carefully measure the same distance from the center point at the front of the trailer to where both spindles should cross the frame, and mark the frame with a grease pencil. Using a clamp to position the right hanger where you want it to be positioned on the frame, making doubly sure that the spindle lines up with the pencil mark on the frame. Now this is where having a perfectly square frame makes a big difference. As you can see, the hanger has 3 holes that are pre-drilled. You can use these 3 holes as a template to mark the frame. This is where we drill. After removing the clamp and hanger, drill the same size holes into the frame. You will need the appropriate size fasteners to bolt the hanger to the frame, making sure to tighten them to the proper torque value. Now that the right side is complete, you're going to repeat the same steps on the left side. First of all, if your frame is completely square, it's unlikely that you'll have to make any adjustments. But if you need to, here's what to look out for. Camber is the way the wheel is tilted. If the wheel is tilted in, camber is negative. If the wheel is tilted out, camber is positive. If the wheel is perfectly perpendicular, meaning no tilt, camber is considered neutral. Both right side and left side assemblies have their own factory built-in camber. If you think it's necessary, you can make additional adjustments with Timbren supplied shims. Toe is the direction in which the tires are pointed. Toe in is when the leading part of the tire is turned inwards towards the center of the trailer. Toe out is when the leading part of the tire is turned outwards away from the center of the trailer. If the tire is pointing straight ahead, toe is considered neutral. The toe on the outboard arm is set for 0. In other words, it's neutral. Adjusting the toe involves loosening the fasteners. There is some tolerance in the mounting holes to make small adjustments as well. With the axleless system, the frame serves as the axle. In some cases, a crossmember may be necessary for your axleless suspension, but in this case, the frame was designed around the axleless suspension, so a crossmember is not necessary. If you choose to use a crossmember, make sure that it extends the entire width of your trailer. The crossmember tubing is not included with your purchase of the axleless, so you'll have to source it from your local hardware store. Some axleless suspensions will require a different size and shape for the crossmember. Be sure to measure the corresponding opening in the hanger. If welding is not an option for you, you can always fasten it using bolts. Along with the newly installed axleless suspension, you have the option to order the brake package. Before we get started with the installation of hubs and brakes, here's a few quick notes. If you want electric brakes, make sure you order a suspension that has a brake flange on the outboard arm. If you plan on buying your own braking system, make sure it's going to work with the spindle supplied. If you bought a system that doesn't require electric brakes, all you're going to need is an idler hub. Okay, let's continue. In order to identify the left-hand side and the right-hand side brake, you will find either a label inside each brake assembly or a note stamped on the brake itself. Install each brake to the backing plate of each corresponding spindle arm. The orientation of the brake is important. Here's why. The magnet inside the brake assembly must be pointing towards the bottom. The slack adjuster will be at the bottom, the brake shoe will be at the front, and the wires are on the top. Position the brake assembly against the flange, sliding the pegs through the holes in the backing plate of the spindle. Place 4 lock washers and 4 UNF nuts to mount each brake assembly. Apply 50 to 55 foot-pounds of torque to each nut. The 2 wires on the inside of the backing plate must be connected to a brake controller, already attached either to the tow vehicle or the trailer. Hand pack both the inner and outer bearings with grease. The inner bearing needs to be inserted into its housing on the inboard side of the hub. Be sure to also insert the grease seal on the top of the bearing, making sure it's fully seated. Position hub and insert outer bearing. Then, place the washer and castle nut into the spindle. Tighten the nut to 200 foot-pounds while rotating the hub. Then, back off 1 full turn. Next, tighten it again to 50 foot-pounds while rotating the hub. Then, back off a 1/4 turn. Insert cotter pin through the castle nut and spindle hole, bending the end of the pin around the spindle with pliers. Finally, fit the grease cap over the nut and cotter pin and fill the hub with grease using the grease zerk grease fitting on the tip of the spindle while rotating the hub. Stop greasing when the grease backs out of the bearing. Install rubber plug to prevent dust and dirt from mixing in with the grease. And that's how you install the Timbren axleless suspension. See you next time.